I've got a friend who has been struggling with her kids and their devices for their entire lives. It's probably been going on for 15 years. And she'll try to set limits and nothing seems to work. It got to the point where she would take their devices, Xbox, iPads, iPhones, whatever, and she would hide them. They would find them. They would get up in the middle of the night and find them to play games on them. It didn't matter what she did. And she tells me that she's tried everything and nothing has worked. And I've seen this up close professionally. I had a client named Robbie. He was online for 18 hours a day, and that had been going on for about 2 years. And he would be up all night being online. I've worked with lots of kids who spend enormous amounts of time online doing various things, gaming, Netflix, scrolling, you name it. I'll confess something myself. Many years ago, when my kids started talking about TikTok when it first came out, I sort of wondered what the big deal was. So I remember exactly where I was. I was in the bedroom sitting on a chair. I downloaded it. I just wanted to see what the big deal was. And literally 3 hours later, I was like, oh, this is the big deal. It sucks you in. I always think of it like a dopamine drip for your brain. And I hate to say this, I probably could have sat there for longer. Here's what the research says. Teenagers spend on average 8.5 hours daily online, and that doesn't count school. So when you add school screen time in, that's another 2 to 4 more hours. So we're really looking at about 10 to 12 hours a day on average that our kids are spending online. And I hear about this concern about technology and electronics all the time nowadays in my professional life. So I want to talk to you about what the real problem is, and it's not what you think. And I want to talk about why this matters and what you can actually do about it. I'm not going to tell you to throw your devices away. That's not realistic. But I am going to show you how to help your kids live with technology rather than grow up inside of technology. Okay, so here's what the real problem is. And again, this is probably not what you're thinking about because a lot of parents are worried when they talk to me about their kids being addicted to electronics. And that might be true in a lot of cases. And I do think that there is something to that. But the real problem is not just addiction. It's actually totally different. The real problem is that constant immersion in technology literally rewires our brains. There's a guy named Jonathan Haidt who wrote a book called The Anxious Generation. You may have heard it. It is an excellent book. Highly recommend you read this. And he calls this the great rewiring of childhood. Our kids' brains and our brains too, if we overindulge, are literally getting rewired. And here's what I mean, because I can tell you from personal experience, I notice in myself, if I spend a lot of time scrolling social media, I will start resisting activities that actually require me to focus. Like, and a good example of that is reading, because I love to read. I love good stories. It's easier for me to put my brain on idle and scroll, and it feels a little bit like a dopamine drip. You get these little bursts of what I don't know if I would call it happiness, but there's something about it that it can be kind of addicting. And then when you have to do something different that requires mental effort, like reading, or for kids, it could be like homework, writing an essay, anything. They don't want to do it. It's almost like it impairs their ability to do that. I will tell you in my practice, I rarely find kids nowadays that really like to read. There are, of course, some kids who really love to read, but it's more and more that I find kids really don't like to read and don't read for pleasure. And kids aren't used to doing things that require sustained focus. This is my opinion because their brains have gotten rewired to do activities that are more passive, like scrolling or whatever, any of the online stuff. There's also research evidence that when teenagers' social lives moved onto smartphones and social media platforms, anxiety and depression skyrocketed. I can tell you in my professional experience, I have never seen so many mental health concerns among our kids as I do right now. Anybody in my field knows what I'm talking about. Mental health challenges aren't just increasing, they're also becoming more complex. It used to be that we often saw kids who were defiant and had behavior issues. We are now seeing much more depression, anxiety, avoidance, low resilience, poor social skills. The data is out there to confirm this. And although I'm sure there are lots of reasons, I don't think it's just social media. I'm convinced that excessive use of technology is one of the causes. All right, now I want to talk about how to help you set boundaries with your kids. Couple things I want you to keep in mind. One thing I want you to consider is that social media is not evil. There are some really good things about technology and electronics. I mean, there are some amazing things about it. And some moderate use of it is probably okay. There are some studies that tell us that even 1 to 2 hours daily is not associated with mental health decline, but it is when we get up to the 3 to 4 plus hours daily. Now, remember, our kids on average are 8 hours. So if you cut that in half, it's still a problem. But if we go down to 1 to 2 hours a day, that's probably okay. Another thing about boundaries that I want to talk about is that it's really important that you have an open dialogue with your kids. Don't set boundaries in the middle of a fight. Sit down, talk with them about your concerns, teach them about social media, learn about this. And probably the most important thing that I would say, I always talk about the supreme importance of your relationship and your connection with your child. If you have put money in the bank with them in terms of your relationship with them, you can set boundaries so much easier because you already have influence with them. You are trying to protect them, but there is no rule or boundary that will protect your child as powerfully as a strong relationship that they have with you. If your kid feels emotionally safe, they will talk to you about what's going on in their lives. But if they feel controlled or if they feel judged, they're going to hide it from you. The importance of connection cannot be overstated. You can get on my YouTube channel, you can get on my podcast. Most of my stuff is about connection because it is that important. I have lots of free content if this is something that you struggle with. All right, let's talk about the recommendations that I really want you to consider in terms of screen time. Screen time means anything with a screen, a TV, a computer, a smartphone, iPad, Xbox, whatever. Okay. So, infants 0 to 2, they don't need to be on screens. Their brains are developing, and it's a really important time for them to be playing, like focused play. When you get to toddlers, and I would say ages 2 to 5, you really want to focus on high quality programming, educational videos. It's probably okay to have up to an hour a day of non educational programming. That could be, those silly little games that kids can play on screens. That's probably okay, but no more than that. 6 and older, I would limit it to 2 hours a day. And I would also really emphasize healthy habits. You have to prioritize sleep for these poor kids because so many kids are tired nowadays. And at this age, they need at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Have boundaries about where they can and where they cannot be on devices. In our family, we don't have kids alone in bedrooms with devices. Never let them take a device to bed at night. In fact, I think you should stop devices 30 to 60 minutes prior to sleep. We don't have them at the dinner table. Learn also about using parental controls. This is easy nowadays. There are parental controls that will help you control it. These are a good, healthy set of boundaries that you can have with your kids with screen time, and it's backed by research. Things are going to go wrong because they always do. Even with the best boundaries, your kid's going to push limits. They're going to break rules. They might have a meltdown. Two things that I want you to think about boundaries, and I'm repeating myself. Number one, if you have a strong, connected relationship with your kid, boundaries are much easier to enforce. Number two, and this is probably the most important thing I could say about boundaries, be consistent. If you're going to pick a boundary, be consistent because when you're consistent, it prevents fights down the road. It's really our inconsistency that lets them think, oh, I can keep pushing and I'll get away with it. Remember, learning to manage technology is a skill, just like learning to drive. There are going to be lots of mistakes for them along the way. They are going to push boundaries. Your job is to stay patient, keep teaching them, but be consistent in those boundaries. The goal is not to eliminate technology from our lives because it is here to stay, but it's to help them develop a healthy, intentional relationship. If this video was helpful, I hope you'll like it, share it with somebody that you think would benefit from this, and I will see you next time.